In this lecture, we will discuss about Egyptian civilization. Already we have in our previous lecture discussed about the Mesopotamian civilization. So Egyptian civilization could be divided as the first phase, the Old Kingdom, which lasted from 3000 to 2000 before Christ, which is also considered as age of pyramids, and the capital was at Memphis. And the second period, that is the Middle Kingdom, lasted from 2000 to 1750 before Christ, and it was during that period the Hyksos, they invaded the Middle Kingdom of Egypt, and the next development in the Egyptian civilization, that is the New Kingdom, which lasted from 1750 to 1000 before Christ. So the Old Kingdom is also called the age of the pyramids during this period. Memphis, situated near modern Cairo, was the capital of the civilization of Egypt, with its advances in art, religion, and sciences were developed during the period from 3000 to 2000 before Christ, and during the Middle Kingdom 2000 to 1750 before Christ. But in the 18th century before Christ, Egypt was overrun by invaders called the Hyksos, who came from the east. They were a nomadic people, and their culture was far less advanced than the Egyptians. Their war chariots and new bronze weapons, however, proved much superior to the Egyptian arms, and they conquered Egypt. Their rule was also very short. Soon the Egyptian kings regained their land, and the new kingdom was founded. Now we begin a new chapter in the history of Egypt. The Egyptian army was transferred, and new tactics of warfare and the horse-drawn chariot were adopted. This enabled the Egyptian kings to conquer many lands. These kings also continued to develop the arts and the sciences. So now we'll discuss about the social classes, which includes the pharaohs at the top, then the priests, officials, artists, craftsmen, and the slaves. So in particular, the Egyptian king was called the Pharaoh. He had absolute powers. The land belonged to him, and his word was law. He was also looked upon as God, and his statutes were put in temples. His deeds and victories were inscribed on temple walls. Next to the Pharaoh came priests, then officials, artists, and craftsmen. Below these people were the farmers who lived beyond the cities, and then came the slaves, who were generally prisoners of war and owned by the king. Then we'll discuss about the occupation of the Egyptians. In particularly, it was agriculture, domestication of animals, weaving, pottery, carpenting, glassware making were common. So, agriculture was the most important occupation of the Egyptian people. The rivers fertilized the land every year, and the people worked together to build canals to make it possible to grow crops all the year round. Thus they could cultivate a wide area. They appear to have used oxen to draw the flow as early as 3,000 before Christ and sickles with flint flags mounted on stout sticks. The chief crop was wheat, barley, and millet. They also grew dates, figs, apples, peaches, and mulberries. Like the people of other early civilizations, the Egyptians domesticated animals such as goats, dogs, asses, pigs, and geese were common. They seem to have had camels also. The horse was brought to Egypt by the Hyksos and used to draw war chariots. Flax was grown in plenty in Egypt, while the Mesopotamians were woolen clothes. The Egyptians had linen garments much more suitable to their climatic conditions. From sculptures we get details regarding the types of garments used by different classes of people. So, in their occupation, that we found in particular the Egyptians started using metals on a large scale. Gradually, perhaps the skill came to them from the Hyksos during the period of the Middle Kingdom. The potters will come into use. The Egyptians make beautiful stone vases which they exported. Like the Mesopotamians, they also developed the art of making glass and produced glassware of graceful shapes. Carpenters made beautiful furniture laid with ivory and precious stones, which was well preserved in the royal tombs of the Egyptian king pharaohs. And now we'll discuss about the very trade and commerce. They had foreign trade and also internal trade through the waterways of river Nile. The lavish life of the Egyptians required such luxury products as incense, oil, silver, timber for building and other things which had to be brought from foreign countries. Internal and foreign trade was controlled by the king. Transport of goods over land was done by pack asses. The Nile was used as a waterway. The Egyptians also had sea-going ships which were used both in war and for peaceful purposes. And now we'll discuss about their religion in context to worshipping nature gods, animal gods, and they were believing life after death. So the Egyptians believed that there was a power behind every phenomenon of nature. But the sun was their most important god, worshipped under different names as the creator of all things. Other Egyptian gods were the king of otherworld, god of the floods, and the moon god. They were also local gods, sometimes represented by symbols such as the hawk, crocodile, jackal, and crow. These were probably the clan totems in some distance past. Priests do not appear to have played an important part in Egyptian religion. The Egyptians firmly believed in life after death. When a man is alive, they thought he has a body and a soul, while other people believe that after death the body perishes and the soul lives. The Egyptians believed that both the body and the soul live. though in a different way. So they took great care in preserving the body of the dead. The body was embalmed in spices and then warped in strips of fine linen. Such a preserved body is called a mummy. The mummy was put in a wooden box decorated with paintings, enclosed in a stone coffin, and buried in a tomb. Inside the tomb were reserved all the things that the dead person was fond of and used when alive. In the case of kings and queens, the coffins and tombs were costly, while those of ordinary persons were simple. Things such as clothes, foods, drinks, costly furniture, and jewelry were kept in the tombs. The pyramids were the tombs of great kings, and now we'll discuss about the architecture and sculpture, and in particularly the Giza pyramid, the tombs of pyramids, such as the Sphinx temple at Karnak and Abu Simbel. So the pyramids were the most remarkable Egyptian buildings in the early period, still remaining as achievement of those years are 30 large pyramids and a number of small ones. The most imposing of all is the Great Pyramid at Giza near Cairo. It was built about 2650 before Christ by the Pharaoh Khufu of the Old Kingdom. According to Herodotus, the Greek historian and the father of history, the great ancient Greek historian, 3 lakh men worked for 20 years to complete this structure, which is made of huge blocks of stone. These blocks were cut into shape and rolled off a slope and fitted together skillfully and carefully. This required an amazing degree of engineering skill. Great Pyramid undoubtedly deserves its place among the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Since the pyramids were the tombs of the pharaohs, they contained the mummies of these monarchs and also all kinds of precious things they used. Many of the pyramids were robbed through the centuries, but the tomb of King Tutankhamun was found intact. In the treasure of this tomb can now be seen in the Cairo Museum. The pyramid walls contain a large number of paintings, so they gave us wealth of information about the lives of the people. For they depict wars and battles, hunting scenes and sacrificial processions, and numerous other aspects of everyday life. Another peculiar specimen of Egyptian architecture is the Sphinx. The Sphinx is a mythological animal with the body of a lion and the head of a man. Each Sphinx was carved out of a single solid stone. Egyptian temples are also remarkable buildings. The temple at Karnak, lavishly adorned with statues and sculptures, has a hall of 130 impressive columns and an avenue of sphinxes leading from the temple to the river. Another famous temple is the great temple of Abu Simbel, cut out of sandstone cliffs. There was a series of halls in the interior of the temple, which was dug into solid rock for about 60 meters. At the entrance to the temple were 4 huge statues of King Ramesses II, about 20 meters high. The temple was dedicated to the sun god. A most remarkable feature of the temple was that the rays of the rising sun shines into the temple, and to it has been called the temple of the rising sun. Both the temple at Karnak and Abu Simbel stood on the banks of the river Nile, and the temples at Abu Simbel in particular had given rise to a problem. It became apparent a few years ago that with the completion of the high dam to be built at Aswan, Abu Simbel would be under the waters of the Nile River. So, in particularly, UNESCO therefore launched a scheme for saving these monuments by international effort. And in particularly now we will go to the very script that was developed by the Egyptian, and the very script of the Egyptians was known as the Hieroglyphic script, and it was an idea they learned from the Sumerians before 3000 before Christ. Was their writing is not a copy of the cuneiform system developed by the Sumerians. The Egyptian script is known as Hieroglyphic, which means sacred writing. It consists of 24 signs, each of which stood for a single consonant. Vowels were not written. Later the Egyptians started using symbols for ideas, and the total number of signs rose to about 500. The importance of writing was soon recognized, and its as in summer, writing became a specialized art. In case of the Sumerians, the writers who constituted an important section of society wrote with neat pens and the leaves of a plant that is called papyrus, from which we get the word paper. How the hieroglyphic script was deciphered is a fascinating story, as it was in case of the cuneiform. So, the very script, that is the hieroglyphic script and the demotic script, another popular script of the ancient Egyptians and Greek. After much patience labor, the deciphering was done of the Egyptian alphabets. So, in the next, we'll discuss about mathematics and science in ancient Egypt. The Egyptians made significant advances in many fields of knowledge. They developed a decimal system of numeration. Numbers from 1 to 9 were represented by one sign repeated to give a desired number. For 10 and its multiples, there were different signs. There were separate symbols for 1, 10, 100, and so on. To write the very figure 153, the symbol for 100 was written once, for 10, 5 times, and for 1 thrice. Addition and subtractions were easy in this system. The mathematics which the Egyptians developed was quite sufficient for their practical needs, but it was not very systematic, unlike the Sumerians. They did not prepare any elaborate multiplication tables, but they could calculate the area of a triangle or a rectangle, the measurement of land, the amazing achievements in the art of building, and the calendar are evidence of their mathematical skills. The crowning achievement of all the Egyptians was the solar calendar. Almost all early people, like the Sumerians, formulated their calendars on the basis of lunar months, but this system was not enough for an agricultural people who require an accurate knowledge of seasons and rains and floods for their agricultural operations. After years of observation, the Egyptian found out that the average length of the period between two floods was 365 days. They also observed that a very bright star, Sirius, was the last to appear on the horizon when the flood reached Cairo, and that this happened after every 365 days. These two independent observations led the Egyptians to conclude that the year had 365 days. The year was then divided into 12 months, and each of 30 days. The extra 5 days were set apart for the celebration of religious festivals. However, the solar year actually consists of about 365 1/4 days. Therefore, over a period of time, a calendar based on a year of 365 days was bound to deviate from nature. Perhaps the Egyptians realized this, but why then the custom had established the previous calendar so firmly that they did not change it. Still, the Egyptian solar calendar was a great achievement. The Egyptians' practice of preserving the bodies of the dead by embalming as a stimulus to science. It added to the knowledge of the very structure of human body and to the skill in surgery. Chiefly practice medicine and surgery. So these are the achievements of the people of Egyptian civilization from 3000 to almost 1000 BC under the Middle Kingdom and the new kingdom of the Egyptian civilization.